I think you have, like you see God use a guy like David. David ends up becomes a favorite, but David made pretty much all the mistakes you can, and then boom. I think there's an opportunity there for the younger generation to learn from you in a way that maybe somebody else is not going to be able to pass that down to them.
Sure, and that's what the good thing about the movie, because it created a platform for me, right?
That's right.
So that's what I take that seriously, which is why, like when you talk about things like Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know you want to talk about that, and that's why I've come out not against Bitcoin per se. I don't think Bitcoin's a scam, but there's scams being perpetrated around Bitcoin that are very dangerous for people that don't know better. And that's why I'm very concerned about it right now, because to the average person who's never been through this before, you could very easily get caught up in something that's going to cost you all your money.
Have you invested yet?
No, not a penny.
Zero. Litecoin, not Bitcoin, not Ethereum, none.
At this point, I can't, because ethically, I've come out heavily against it. I'd have a financial axe to grind, which would make my opinion suspect. So I've decided to stay clear of the whole investment side of the equation. Instead, I'm constantly going on all the TV news, CNN, Fox. They're all asking me to go on their shows, because I think I have a very unique purview into what's going on. Of course, Bitcoin is so much like a penny stock. It's almost the perfect penny stock.
See, I remember penny stocks. As a broker, I was so excited about penny stocks.
The thing with Bitcoin is, it's a wolf in sheep's clothing, so to speak, because it's supposed to be a currency, but no one uses it as a currency. It's an investment vehicle.
So let me ask you this. Let's look at both sides. Okay, let's say Bitcoin becomes what you say it is, which is it's a bubble. It's not going to work out. People lose $20 billion. Let's just say that goes away. Okay, but let's look at the other side. If it does become, hypothetically.
It won't though.
But let's just say if it does.
It won't.
I understand that, but let's just say if we go in the direction where cryptocurrency is done by, let's just say, Goldman Sachs.
And I believe that will happen. That will happen.
If that
100%.
does happen, who gets hurt the most? What corporations, what industries get hurt the most?
It's the little people that get hurt.
You think the little people or the big banks?
People have this whole thing wrong, what's going on right now, this cryptocurrency. There's nothing different about cryptocurrency than any other currency. Listen, Bitcoin was started by some people that were not scam artists. They were not looking to break any laws. People that were almost like financial anarchists in a way, but there was a social experiment on alternative money.
Sure.
It's a naive way of looking at it. It's never gonna happen. You actually think that the US government and China and Japan, and they're gonna allow, however, the technology itself is excellent, it's beautiful, it's elegant, and there's a place for that technology, whether it's futures, anything, that tracking investments through a blockchain technology is an elegant technology. It will never, ever be, besides the fact that there's fundamental problems with Bitcoin that will not allow it to ever really be used as a currency in mass. That's not the issue.
You're saying that'll never happen as a mass?
No, I don't believe so, no.
So what do you think is gonna be? You think it's gonna be credit and cash? You don't think we'll be a cashless society?
No, I think that what's going to happen is that blockchain technology will be adopted, and one day, probably very soon, we'll have a cryptocurrency, but there's no different than regular currency. Here's the thing about Bitcoin. As a currency, Bitcoin is no more useful at 20,000 than at 100.
Dollars.
Yeah, it still works, whether it's $100 or $2 billion, you can still use Bitcoin as a currency. So the only reason it's running up is because it's not being used as a currency, it's being used for wild speculation. And what's happening is that there's two sides to every equation when you come to anything that's trading publicly. And that is, there's the market capitalization, which in Bitcoin is, they're saying it's 200 billion some odd dollars, right? But that's irrelevant. All that matters when something is trading is what's called the float. How much is actually out there that's being bought and sold? Almost all of Bitcoin is locked away and is not trading. You have this tiny, so there's $200 billion in market cap. There's probably 2 million or 4, 5, $10 million at the most trading of it. So when you have a very thin market cap like that, it's easy to manipulate it. And what happens is, once you buy Bitcoin, it's not so easy to sell it. It's a hassle to sell it, so it keeps getting thinner and thinner, which is why you have these wild swings. And then the latest thing, this latest joke of Bitcoin was this guy. I mean, I just saw something happen, which is, here's a guy who's an insider in this Bitcoin thing, exchange or something, right? And the guy is long, massive amount of Bitcoin, rides up the wave, right? He sells his Bitcoin, and then he announces, after he sells it, he announces, I've sold all my Bitcoin, it's worthless, get out of Bitcoin, and I put everything into BitCash. And guess what happens? Bitcash then runs up. This guy's got a lot of power. If this guy did not have a bad intent, you know what he would have done? He would have done that trade and shut up. What was the reason? Why would he say it publicly? I've sold all my Bitcoin, buy Bitcash. It's a classic pump and dump. Whether or not they can solve some of the technical problems that plague Bitcoin, long transaction times, there's too much negative, there's too much damage done.
Jordan, how much do you think sales has changed from the times you were selling to today?
Not much at all. I mean, people think that it has. I don't think it's changed really at all. What makes someone say yes has not changed. It's still the same things, the same elements of sales need to line up in someone's mind before they say yes. What has changed is that there's different ways that we communicate with people right now. For instance, like, you have email, which is a big thing, landing pages and conversions, and when it really comes down to it, someone's got to sell someone something.
No doubt.
Like, look at Amazon. You say, well, they don't sell. Yes, they do. Their processes, they are so elegant at what they do that they've got it down to like one click, because they realize that every time someone's gonna make a second action, they're using all the principles of marketing and sales and everything they do. And also, how do you think Jeff Bezos recruited all the people? He had to sell them to come and join Amazon. How did he sell Wall Street to believe in that? So there's always salespeople involved. Like, Jeff Bezos is the most amazing salesperson. He sold the concept to everybody. When people look at sales, it's very, very linear. Like, I'm a salesman, or everyone's a salesperson.
Sure.
The way we get leads has changed very much, very much.
Social media.
Yeah, that's changed, no doubt. How you go out getting the leads. But when someone walks in the door, you pick up a telephone, it's gonna be the same stuff. And people are just smarter now because they have smartphones to look at.
I want to ask one last question on the sales side. For the sales managers out there, people who are running a sales team, they're running a sales organization, what advice can you give to a sales manager to become a business? So I've been in sales, I'm selling, I'm making six figures, maybe I'm at $250,000, maybe I'm making $500,000 year income. How do I become a better sales manager? What would you say?
Well, number one is there are certain very basic principles that a lot of sales managers don't really adhere to. Number one is very often I'll go into a company and I'll see that they've instituted a flawed compensation structure, where the compensation structure itself doesn't get the most out of salespeople.
Wow.
It allows them to sort of work hard for a while, they get lazy and work off residuals. So that's one clear thing I see all over is compensation structures that are not structured correctly, that lead to laziness and salesmen to sit back and sort of collect royalties or trailing income, right? That's one thing. Another thing is that I think that many sales managers don't do even close to enough sales training. They don't make sure, of every sales force that I've ever managed, I made sure they were great salespeople. Number three is giving frequent meetings. In other words, motivation. What you say to people every once in a while doesn't have that much impact. What you say to them every day has massive impact. I wanted this to be like a book that I didn't care how many copies it sold the first year. I wanted it to be like the Think and Grow Rich that would be around for 100 years. And I really believe it's going to be that. I think this book is just going to keep selling and growing and becoming more and more a staple of every person. It's like a must. I think it should be a must read for every human being, because what it really is, it's a communication strategy. That's what the straight lines of communication strategy. It shows you how to communicate, how to share your ideas, your concepts. Doesn't matter whether you're in sales or not. It just shows you how to be a more effective human being. And I just couldn't imagine going through life. There's so many people who go through life and they have great ideas, right? Brilliant ideas. They have so much to give the world. They have so much to provide for their family. They could be rich, but because they lack the ability to communicate in an effective way, they die with their music on their lips. They can't express their greatness.
Wow.
That's a skill you have to have if you want to be a success-oriented individual. You need to learn how to communicate your hopes, your ideas, your dreams in a way that connects with people and moves them to take action, gets you what you want to. That's what ethical persuasion is all about.